this in relation to generating shellcode. When we generate shellcode, we need to know what characters are good for the shellcode and what characters are bad for the shellcode. We can do that by running all the hex characters through our program and seeing if any of them act up. By default, the null byte x00 acts up. So we're going to take a look at what these look like and if any of these bad characters act up in our program. So let's go ahead and actually go out to Internet Explorer or Firefox in Kali. Okay, and in a small update to the course, the link I was going to have you go to, or I did have you go to, no longer exists. So my bad chars now looks a little bit different, but what we're going to do is we're going to go to the first one here, which is the Cytopia. It is actually a bad char generator. It's a tool. You're welcome to download it and set it up. Fairly easy to install with pip if you want. It shows you all the usages, pretty nice and neat. The cool thing, however, is we can just copy what's already here. So this is in your course resources. All I want you to do is right click, copy this, and then we're going to paste this into a script as the video resumes. But this is in your course resources. Check it out. Great little tool. Otherwise, let's go ahead and continue the video. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just gedit the last Python script we worked on. For me, that was 2.py. It could be whatever you named your script. And if you recall, we had just overwritten the EIP with 4b. So we're just going to add on to that. So I'm just going to hit enter twice here and then hit paste. And remember we talked about the null byte, this x00 being bad. I'm going to go ahead and just delete that anyways. So we don't even have to run it through our program. So when we're talking about bad characters, what we do here is we run every single character in hex through it, right? So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0A, 0B, 0C, etc., all the way to XFF down here. So some programs have characters, just let's make something up, for example, say X70. It may be some command that runs in the program that tells it to do something, right? So we don't want to use X70 in our generating of shellcode because then the shellcode is going to break if it uses this X70. So what we do is we parse all of these through the program and we see what looks funny. Basically, it's an eye test. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and save this. Actually, we need to add one more thing. I apologize. We're going to add the bad chars here after the EIP, and then we're going to save this. And then again, if you're creating a new file, make sure you change your mode. Of course, make sure that you have your immunity running and you have Vuln server attached. So what we're going to do now is we're going to fire this off. It should break the program. No big deal. Okay, it comes through. We see again, we've got a bunch of 42s here. But what we're really interested in is the hex dump. So we can look at that dump this way. We could say, at the ESP, right click and say follow in dump. Okay, if you look here, let me try to make this bigger. If you want to make it bigger, you can actually go into the text or the appearance, I apologize, and you could say the font to OEM, I believe, is the biggest. Okay, and I will try to pull this up a little bit so it looks bigger here. So what we're going to do then is we're going to look at this hex dump here. And if this is small, I apologize. So what we're doing is we're saying, okay, I sent X01, so we're expecting a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then we expect 0A, 0B, 0C, 0D, 0E, 0F, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, etc. We go through this whole list, right? Remember, the last thing we sent was FF. So we're looking for FF down here. We go through every single thing and we see if there's anything out of place. Now, heads up, there's nothing out of place here. Vuln server was made to be very easy, very straightforward. So there are no bad characters. But if there were a bad character, it would be out of place. It would not make sense. Like, for example, if you were reading through and you see 10, 11, and then 12 was missing, and then it goes to 13, okay, it's likely that 12 is a bad character. Now, to make more sense of this, I do have bad characters pulled up. Let's take a look at this. So, I've got this dump here instead. So if we look, we've got 01, 02, 03, B0, B0, 06, 07, 08. Okay, so right away, we're missing 4 and 5, right? So we can identify those as bad characters. And what about the rest? So if we keep going through here and we keep looking for these B zeros, which is how it's identifying, then we know that those are bad characters. Now, I will say that it's not going to always be B0 that shows up. It's just going to be something that's out of place. And this is definitely an eye test that you're going to have to run through when you do buffer overflows, and you're going to have to make sure you find everything. I have in the past missed one bad character, generated my shellcode, and pulled my hair out for 30 minutes to an hour looking at why it was not working. So if you want to look at this in practice, go ahead. You can pause the video, see if you can identify the rest of the bad characters here. But if not, I'll identify them for you. It's these guys, right? So what you would do is you would write all of these down. You would say, okay, I'm missing 04. I'm missing 05. I'm missing 28 over here. I'm missing 29, missing 44, 45, etc., right? So you want to make sure you notate all of these down, because when we generate shellcode in a couple of videos, you're going to have to remember all of these. But again, lucky for us, the only thing we're going to have to take out when we generate shellcode is that null byte, which we took out here, or else we would see it start with 00. In a second small update to this video, I want to talk about the bad characters here. Now, when I first gave instruction and taught this, my understanding of bad characters was actually incorrect. And as we grow older and learn more, we learn more about some of this stuff. So I'm back with a minor correction here. First of all, the B0 character itself, right here, is okay as a character. Second of all, consecutive bad characters, all you have to worry about is the 4 here. The 5 is actually an okay character. So anytime you have consecutive characters, which we have here, our only bad character is the first character in that sequence, so 44 in this instance. With that being said, I am one that takes caution. I would rather take out 4 and 5 and even B0 and run that and have my shellcode generate. Now, I can understand wanting to understand the technical portion of it and what is right and wrong, and I agree 100%. But your shellcode will still operate if you took out 4 and 5, or if you just took out 4. In some rare exceptions, that might not be the case, but for the most part, and especially in beginner exploit development, that is true. But I did want to add some clarification here. From here, we're going to move on to the next video. Okay, now on to finding the right module. So when we talk about finding the right module, what we're saying is we're looking for a DLL or something similar inside of a program that has no memory protections, meaning no dep, no ASLR, no safe SEH, etc. Now there's a tool out there called Mona Modules that we can use with Immunity Debugger to achieve this. So if you go out to Google and you search Mona Modules, you should be able to find a GitHub page for it. You're going to need to download this mona.py file and put it in this specific folder here. So the specific folder is this PC, program files x86, Immunity Inc., Immunity Debugger, py commands, and you're going to paste it right into here. So go ahead and do that, and then once you're ready, let's go back to Immunity Debugger. And now I already have the program attached, Vuln servers here. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually type in this little bar down here. So what you can type in is exclamation Mona Modules and hit enter. So that'll pop this guy up here. And if you look, what we can see is these protection settings right here. Look, we've got false, 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 false across the board for some of these protection settings. And that's what is ideal for us, right? We've got trues on some of these other things, but really what we're looking for is we're looking for something attached to Vuln server itself, which you can see this Vuln server right here, and we're looking for all falses. So a prime candidate immediately right away is this essfunc.dll. So we're going to go ahead and just keep that in the back of our minds, because we actually need to do one other thing. Now, if we know this by memory, we can go ahead and type it out right here, but I want to show you the process for actually finding what we're about to do. What we're about to do is find the opcode equivalent of a jump. So let's go ahead and look at how to do that. To do that, we're going to go into Kali Linux, And we're going to locate something called NASM shell. So we'll just type locate NASM shell. And go ahead and just copy this Ruby right here. And then paste it in like this and hit enter. So when we say we're looking for the opcode equivalent, we're trying to convert assembly language into hex code. So what I'm doing is I'm going to type in this assembly language, this JMP ESP. This is a jump command. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this as a pointer. So the pointer is going to jump to our malicious shellcode. And that'll make more sense here in just a little bit. So the hex code equivalent of JMP ESP is FFE4. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take this information, this FFE4, and we're going to go back into immunity. And we're going to type this instead. So let's delete the modules part. We're going to keep Mona. And we're going to say Mona find. We'll do a -s. And we're going to say XFF/XE4. And then we're going to say M for module. And we're going to use this ESSfunc.dll. So if that makes sense, we've got our opcode equivalent here, the FFE4, and then we've got the module of ESSfunc.dll, which is right here. Again, we chose this because it goes with the Vuln server program, and it has no memory protections. So this is a good candidate for what we want to do. So let's go ahead and just hit enter on this guy. Okay, and I think I forgot a slash here. Let's check this out. Okay, so that is better. So what we're looking for here is we're looking for these return addresses. So if you look at this 625011AF, that is going to be a return address. So let's go ahead and just write this one down. We're going to go right down the list and find what works. So I always like to start at the top, and you can see here that it found this ESSfunc.dll, and it's got all the memory protections here listed as false. So now with this information, what we're going to do is we're going to go into Kali. We're going to just type exit here on this NASM shell. And we need to edit our Python script. So whatever Python script you're at, I'm still on 2.py, go ahead and open that guy up. Let's delete out the bad characters because we did already find those. And now what we're going to do is we're going to delete out this B4. So let's write in real quick what our return address was. Remember, it was 625011AF. So now, instead of having 4 Bs in place of the EIP, we're going to put this pointer there. So we're going to have the EIP be a jump code, and then the jump code is going to go to malicious code. So we're going to enter that in here. Now we're going to enter it in a little special. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to enter it in like this. We're going to say /XAF/X11/X50/X62. If you notice, this is actually in reverse. So you see AF115062. We're doing this reverse for a special reason. So when we're talking with x86 architecture, we're doing something called little endian format. So x86 architecture actually stores the low order byte at the lowest address and the high order byte at the highest address. So we actually have to put this in reverse order. So what this should do now is this should throw the same error before, but it's going to hit a jump point. So we can do something special in Immunity to actually catch this. Let's go ahead and hit save on this script. And let's open up Immunity again. So let's go ahead and minimize this. And let's maximize this guy again. Okay, so we're going to do something special here. So first what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to click on this little arrow here. It's kind of bluish black. And we're going to enter in this expression to follow, 625011AF. So remember, that's going to be our jump code. So if we hit OK, we should find this FFE4, this JMP ESP, right? And this is perfect. This is exactly what we want right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit F2. So F2 will turn it blue. And what we have just done is we've set a breakpoint. So we have the breakpoint running. What this means is we're going to overflow the buffer, but if we hit this specific spot, this jump code, it's not going to jump to further instruction. It's actually going to break the program and pause right here for further instruction from us. And that's all we want. We don't have anywhere to jump to right now, so it's not important. We just need to know that we are hitting this, we're overwriting the EIP in the exact spot we need to, and then we're going to be able to jump forward. So let's go ahead and hit play here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go back into Kali and we're going to execute our script. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll say 2.py here. Run that. Oh, you know what I did? Apologize here. I never deleted the original code here. So if you caught that, good job. Okay, let's go ahead and try that now. Okay, so we ran it, and what happened? You see breakpoint at ESSFunc.625011AF happened. The program is now paused. We have hit our breakpoint. That means we control this EIP. Look at this, 625011AF. We control the EIP. Now all we have to do is generate some shellcode, point directly to that shellcode, and we are home free with root. So we're going to go ahead and do that in the next video, and I will catch you over there. All right, the video you have been waiting for. This is the last and final video in the course, and now we're going to gain shell. So here's what's going to happen. We're going to use a tool called MSF Venom, and we're going to use that to generate shellcode. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste the command over, and then we'll talk about what this command does. So we're running MSF Venom. It's brought to you by Metasploit, and we're going to set a switch of P for payload. So we're going to set the payload for Windows because we're attacking a Windows machine, and we're going to do a shell reverse TCP. So we didn't declare x64 here, so we're going to assume x86, but we'll declare that later just in case. So when we have a reverse shell like this, what we're doing is we're having the victim connect back to us. So we need to provide our information. So by our information, I mean the Kali machine IP address, which is going to be our L host right here. And then we're going to also have a port we're going to be listening on. So that's going to be our L port, our listening port. And we're going to declare that as 4444. I'm setting an exit func equal to thread. All that does is make our exploit a little bit more stable. We have a -F for file type. We're going to export this into C. A -A for architecture, that's x86. And then a -B for bad characters. Here's where finding the bad characters becomes important. So we didn't have any besides the null byte, but it's always good to teach it and explain why it would be important later. So if we had any bad characters, this is where we would put them in. So let's go ahead and just hit enter here. And it'll take just a second to generate this shellcode. And once it does, we're going to copy and paste it into our Python script that we've been using. So we're going to grab this information here. We don't need the semicolon. And it's always good to take note of the payload size. So it's not going to matter too much for us, but if you do go into exploit development, payload size can be everything. It could be that you're working with a very limited space. Say you only have 200 bytes left, and a payload size of 351 is just not going to work because you're going to truncate it at 200. So always good to note the payload size, especially as you dive deeper into other projects, if you do go farther into exploit development. So let's go ahead now and open up our Python script we've been using. So I'm still on 2.py. And I'm going to declare a new variable here up at the top. We're just going to call this overflow. Set it equal to this. I'm going to add a parenthesis, hit enter, and then add a closing parenthesis like that. So what we're also going to do is we're going to come down here, and we're going to add in overflow, and then we're going to talk about this. So what we've got here is we've got the shellcode, right? So what's going to happen is we're going to submit the shellcode. In this variable shellcode here, we're going to say, okay, 2003 bytes. That gets us to the EIP. When we get to the EIP, we're going to hit this pointer address, right? This pointer address is just a jump address. So we're going to jump to this set of instructions that we provide. The set of instructions we're providing is this overflow here. So what we need to do before we submit this overflow is actually insert something else. And those are called NOPs. So it's going to look something like this. So it's called X90 like this. And we're just going to add 32 in. And so NOPs are padding, essentially. They stand for no operation. If you've ever heard of something called a NOP sled, that's kind of what it's referring to. So when we have something like this, what we're doing is we're just adding a little bit of pad space in between this jump command and this overflow shellcode, right? So in an instance, if we didn't have this, it's possible that our overflow wouldn't actually work. We wouldn't get command execution on the computer because something interfered here. So we just like to add a little bit of padding in between these two, and that makes it a little bit more safe. Again, if you have a limited space, say we go back to the 200 byte example, you might really need a little bit of padding, like 8 bytes, 16 bytes. You have to play around with it and figure it out. So a lot of exploit development is just messing around with the exploit until something works. So we're going to go ahead and just save this now. Okay, and then on another tab over here, what we're going to do is I'm going to set up netcat to listen. So it's going to be NVLP like this. And then I'm going to put the port to all fours because that's what we declared in our shellcode generation. Okay, lastly, what we need to do is we need to run vuln server as administrator. We don't have to have it in immunity this time. All we have to do is just make sure it's running. And then we're going to fire off this guy. So we're going to say 2.py, hit enter, check this over here, and look at that, we've got a shell. So now we are on this computer. We could say, who am I? Okay, it's Heath. Heath is me. That's the administrator. Perfect. We are good to go. So we have gone from fuzzing a program, spiking a program, not knowing anything about the program, finding the vulnerable trun command. We used that to fuzz it. We found and controlled the EIP. We found some bad characters. We found the right module, generated some shellcode, and now here we are at root. So hopefully this has been easy for you. My recommendation is to go through and make notes again, try to understand the theory behind what's happening, and also try to understand everything that's going on. This is as basic and simple as overflow can get. Of course, there are memory protections. It's not generally this easy. This is just meant to teach people how buffer overflows work. Hello, everyone. So this is a update to the course. It is 2021 and Python 2 is now very much deprecated. So I showed you some tips and tricks and techniques to run Python 2, and it really was all manual method for utilizing Immunity Debugger. And I think the manual method's good so you understand why you're doing what you're doing and how you can go through it. Now I'm going to show you some automated steps that we can use using Mona, and I'm going to show you how to build out our script in Python 3. Now I'm going to semi-speed run through this because you should have most of this already. So I'm going to walk through and talk what is different in Python 3 and what you see and what might look a little bit different. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're looking at our initial fuzzing script here. And you can see I'm calling out up here user bin Python 3 as opposed to our user bin Python that we initially called. And we're coming through and everything holds true for the most part, except when you come down, we have a couple of differences. So I am putting in a payload of this trun command, right? And we have the buffer that we're sending through. This should look familiar. This is what we did, except we did this in the send command here. All we're doing now is we are encoding this. Now, this might run on its own, although we've seen some issues with Python 3, especially without encoding it, where this will not run. So now we're doing byte encoding, and I'll show you what that looks like here in just a minute when we get to our last script, what it looks like kind of manually and how you can get this to execute. But for here, we're doing byte encoding, and this is allowing this to send. It's a feature of Python 3. We have to declare what we're sending over in the data. So we're sending over these bytes. Okay, so very, very small differences here. The declaration of Python 3 at the top. Everything else holds true, except we're adding this payload command and we're using a .encode to send this over. Other than that, the print command down here, you'll notice prints now have parentheses. Python 3 feature. We don't just do print and then you're used to seeing just the quotes. Python 3 now, you have to utilize the parentheses around a print. So we're doing that. Okay, so simple, straightforward on this script. If you need it, go ahead, pause on any of these and copy it down if you want to try this out. I'm going to move on to the second part here. So when we're trying to find the offset, same exact thing. Notice all I did was delete the buffer. This looks exactly like the second script that we ran in the initial videos, right? But this time, all I'm doing is removing that while loop, bringing this over. This is identical to the script we created. And again, the print command is now in parentheses. This offset's here and it's just encoded. Nothing different. We generate this the same exact way, and then we find the offset in the same exact way using our tool set. Okay, so we generate this, go in there, see the offset. The offset will be exactly the same. We'll find that it's 2003, and we'll move on to our next script where we try to control the EIP. So again, make sure you're using Python 3 at the top. Just small minor changes here. So now with Python 3 at the top again, our third script, we're going to go ahead and take this, make it into shellcode. This should look no different again. And now we're just going to replace that with the shellcode variable. Same thing. This is even identical. These last two scripts here, purely identical. All we have to do is change offset into shellcode now that we have found that the offset's at 2003. And we're trying to overwrite the EIP with the 4 bytes. So easy breezy. Moving on, this is where we get into a little bit of fun. Okay, so I showed you how to go out and grab bad characters lists, and we did the manual method where we reviewed everything, and gosh, that took a long time. What we can do here is we have the bad characters. Let's just take a look at this script first. Now, this is how we have our bad characters. Again, all we have to do is add the bad characters in, add that to the end of our shellcode, have our shellcode here for the payload command. This is all the same, payload and code, ship it off, we're good. But I want to ship this off, but I want to show you something first. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to switch over to a Windows VM that I have. I'm going to go ahead and load up Vuln Server, and I want to show you a couple commands. So the first command, we're going to use Mona here, and we're going to set a configuration working folder. So what I've done is I've gone in here, and if I went to my C drive and I just created a folder called Mona right here. So go ahead and just create a folder if you want. And what I do now is I declare this is where I want Mona to save data. So I'm just going to say exclamation Mona config, and then we're going to tell it to set a working folder just like this, and then C Mona like this. Okay, you can hit enter on that, and it'll say that you have set the working folder. Now, once you have your working folder set, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and generate a bad characters list. Remember, we had to go out and find that bad characters list. It's not that difficult, but this is a nice little feature that we can do. So I want to show this to you. We can use a Mona command. So we can just say Mona, and we can come in here and just say byte array, bytearray, and then we type in -cpb, and then we're going to say x00. So what we're doing here is we're generating a payload list for us, and we're saying go ahead and strip out the x00. We don't need that. You could, in theory, just delete this and just run Mona byte array, but here this is fine because it'll take out the 00 for us. We don't need it. You can see that it generated a list right here, but if you go to your Mona folder, it put it into a nice text file here. I'm actually going to delete this and let this all go one more time. So I'm going to let it start off as if we were doing this together. Okay, so this text file here, this byte array, you come in here and look, it's got the byte array generated for you. You can literally just copy and paste this into your shellcode. You don't have to go out and do anything. This will generate it for you. So if you had bad characters you wanted to strip off, say like a 01, 02, it would take that and automatically do that for you. Very nice little feature. It also creates this bin file. Okay, so it knows the characters it's going to be comparing against and looking for. So once we go and we run this, I'm going to go ahead and click the C up here. That's going to bring us back to our normal view. I'm going to go ahead and hit play up here. I'm going to let the program run. And then what I want to do on my side is, and you can run your Python 2 script if you don't have a Python 3 put together yet. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this for.py. I'm going to run the bad characters like we would before. So I'm just going to run Python 3 for.py. I'm going to send that off, and hopefully we should have an error over here. We do. We've paused, You can see we got the access violation. We overwrote with the 4 2s. That's pretty common. This right here is where we would right click and we would say follow in dump. And we go manually review everything. Oh, that's terrible. Instead of doing that, why can't we just use Mona? Well, we actually can. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So here we're going to say Mona. I'm going to delete some of this. And we're just going to type in compare, Mona compare. And we give a -F for the file location. And so we're just going to say C, Mona. And then we're going to compare this bin file that it generated, byte array.bin. So it generated this byte array bin file right here. It's going to compare that, and it's going to look at the address we give it. So we want to give it the address of the ESP sitting here. So we have in the ESP, we have 010A F9 C8. And this changes. Your ESP value might be different. That's fine. So just enter in whatever you see in your ESP. And I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to just hit enter on this. And it's going to look for any bad characters. And it says here that the bad character results are 00 and 80. Now, when we manually reviewed this, we didn't see 80 as being a bad character. It says possible bad characters 80. If you see this and you want to generate your shellcode without 00 and without 80, that'd be perfectly fine. You don't have to go through and utilize 80. It will generate shellcode without it, and just to be safe. Okay, but here, I don't say it's false positive. It's just detecting a possible bad character. So you would take this list here and just go ahead and generate your shellcode based on that. So again, fairly straightforward. Now, next step. Remember, we had to find the jump address. We had to find our return address. And we went and we found the XFF, XE4, and we had to do that in more of a convoluted way using Kali Linux. We don't have to do that here. We can actually utilize a Mona command as well to do all this. So I'm just going to make this clean again. And let's actually just go ahead and open up a new immunity debugger, and we'll just go ahead and load and attach Vuln server again so that we have a clean instance. We can let this run. And remember, when we were searching for our essfunc.dll, we tried to find the right module. When we came in here and we said, hey, Mona modules, and we looked and we saw the essfunc.dll and we said, hey, that's good. And we went and found the XFF XE4. Well, we can kind of bypass a step here. Let's say that we identified a module like we did. Now all we have to do is we can just say, hey, I want to find the jump address for ESP. Okay, and then we just say, I want to find that for essfunc.dll. And we're going to do that. And we should find a return address when we run that. So it'll bring you to the screen. All you have to do is minimize this. And if you come into here, you'll see that we ran the command. And we have the same results as we did before. So we don't have to go through that whole process of finding the XFF XE4. This will do it for us. And you can see the 625011AF. That is identical to what we had before. So we found the exact same thing. Okay, I'm going to close this out. And I don't think we're going to need this anymore. So I'm going to go back to our Linux and I want to look at the last script that we run. Okay, so this is where things get a tad bit different, and I wanted to show you the manual byte encoding here. Sometimes the payload encode does not work the proper way we want it to. I was running into issues with this, running this script. So the other thing that we can do is manually byte encode this. And so what I've done is I've generated our payload. This is the same thing as running MSF Venom, ran through this, got our reverse shell ready, and I've just put B's in front of every single line. This is telling it we're going to byte encode this. Okay, and come down here, look at the shell code. There's a B in front of the A, there's a B in front of the return address, there's a B in front of the NOP, or the no operation, and then we've got the overflow, which is already byte encoded here. We're going to send that over, same thing. This time we're going to just say payload, put a B in front of the trun command, and then we're going to send over payload without the encoding, and hopefully everything will work just fine. I'm going to go ahead and execute this script here. So I'm going to open up a new tab, and I'm just going to set a listener on all fours, and then I'm going to just open Vuln server here on its own. and we shall test this and see if it works. So let's go ahead and run Python 3. This is my 5.py. Execute that. Hopefully we have a shell here, and we do. Same process. Again, not much changes throughout this whole thing. I kind of sped ran through this, and it's more or less because I know you already have the foundations down. Now it's just changing this to the modern times and changing this to show you some of the easier tips and tricks. So when you're looking through these, just go ahead and note Python 3, note the subtle differences of having to encode and having to have a separate variable down here, and then the subtle differences of using parentheses for your print commands as well. Everything else, for the most part, stays the same. There are differences between Python 3 and Python 2 that are more significant than this, but in terms of our scripting and what we have to do, not very significant for this aspect. So again, note the payload encoding. If you're running into any issues with Python 3, putting a B in front of your payload is a good practice, good idea. So, all right, that is it for this video. I will catch you over in the next section. Welcome to the course capstone. This is the 2021 edition of the course capstone, and we'll get into the old capstone, the new capstone, and what the differences are. But the course capstone is meant to challenge you and test your skills and knowledge up to what you've learned so far. Now, not everything is cut and dry. These boxes are not meant to be particularly easy. They're actually meant to be learning experiences. So what that means is you are welcome to go through these machines on your own, give them a try. I realize that we have not talked whatsoever about privilege escalation. We have not talked about a lot of the tools that you're going to see, and this is by design. Hacking is not going to be able to show you, a course on hacking is not going to be able to show you everything, but you're going to get to pick up some ideas and a little bit of Googling and a little bit of frustration and really just getting in there, getting your hands dirty and seeing what you can come up with. So I encourage you to try these on your own in the order that they're listed. However, if you want to just watch and follow along, that's absolutely okay as well. Now, I mentioned privilege escalation, but we'll talk about that here in a second. I want to show you the old course capstone and where the new course capstone is. So I have uploaded the new course capstone. This is not all the machines yet. This is just the ones that I started uploading. All you gotta do is go in here and download these machines. You can run them with VMware or VirtualBox. I've got setup instructions for a couple of the machines. Once you've seen one Windows or one Linux, you can see them all and how to download them and run them. So that's pretty straightforward. The link will be provided in the resources or below the video, depending on what platform you're on. Now, the old capstone. Here's the old capstone. I have not pushed the new update yet, so this is what the old capstone looks like. You could see there were 10 boxes, there were 5 hours of material, or was 5 hours of material. The issue with the old capstone was that we were relying on a platform called Hack the Box. Hack the Box was a paid subscription platform. It cost anywhere from $10 to $15 a month. I'm not sure exactly of the true cost, but I realize not everybody can pay additional funds to go and use this platform to walk through these machines. So what we have done is we have made these machines available via YouTube. So I'm going to put this down below as well, but there is a series originally released called Pen Testing for Noobs. If you look, all 10 of those machines are going to be here as well. So you're welcome to come to the YouTube channel and watch these videos. If you want extra content, extra walkthroughs, and more of the practice and more of the capstone, you're welcome to go sign up for Hack the Box, do all that. But we are removing that dependency from the course. Now, these machines are going to require what is called privilege escalation. We are going to walk through privilege escalation. What I mean by that is, I mean that we are looking at a box. When we land on the machine, we are not root or we are not system on that machine. We are a low-level user, we have low privileges, and we need to escalate our privileges to the highest level that we can. So all of these machines, except for one at the time of this recording, are going to have some sort of privilege escalation involved. Now you're going to get to see some cool tooling, some different techniques and tactics, but it's not going to go into super depth on this. There are courses out there that we have created. We have 2 here. the Windows privilege escalation for beginners and Linux privilege escalation for beginners if you are on Udemy. If you are on the Academy, same concept, Windows and Linux, just depending on the platform you're on and which one you prefer. So if you're interested in going after any sort of certifications, if you're interested in doing any sort of capture the flag or getting better at just escalation in general, highly recommend these courses. If you're looking to stay kind of on that practical path, then these aren't really necessary. It's really based on chasing certifications in the hacking realm, like your OSCP or some of the other certifications that might be out there. They use a lot of privilege escalation to test on. But again, it's not really on the practical side of things. So depending on what your motivations are and reasoning, however, we are going to show them in this course only because they are a good introduction to hacking. It's good to see the other side. It's good to see some of the exploits that are out there, some of the thought processes that are out there. And then once we get into the Active Directory section, it'll really take off from a practical standpoint, and we're really going to start hacking like we are hacking a real network, and it's going to get really fun. It's my favorite section in the whole course. So with that being said, go through the courses again in order as you see them. So however you see them in the list, go ahead and go through them. We're going to add more courses over time. As of right now, the dependency is that you download these and install these for your lab. Again, there will be instructions for those. In later attempts, we are hoping to offload these to an online lab. Unfortunately, we won't be able to do that with Udemy, but with the Academy platform, we should be able to do that. So we're working on getting that. But for now, the Google Drive link that you see attached to the introduction video, this video, will have all the files that you need to download in order to complete this section. So with that being said, go ahead and complete the next box. I'll see you in the next video, and hopefully you rooted it. So before we begin the capstone, I want to show you how to import a machine. And I'm going to show you, starting with Blue, how to import Blue, which is a Windows machine. And then we're going to go ahead and import a Linux machine in a later video. So that way you should know how to do both, though the process is exactly the same. So for Blue, what we're going to do is we're going to come into VMware here, and I'm going to show you VirtualBox as well. We're going to go open virtual machine, and you're just going to select the file that should be available to you here, which is Blue. I've already done that through the magic of editing, so it's already here, and I'm just going to go up here and show you that. We'll get to settings here in a second. For VirtualBox, same exact process. I'm going to go ahead and just go to import. I'm just going to paste the location in here. You can also use this to go find your file, and I'm going to hit next and import. Okay, and it should start importing this file. So here we go, it's importing. It'll take 50 seconds, that's fine. Gives me time to talk about the settings. So you can see here that we are in bridged mode. Okay, we don't want to be in bridged mode. Let's go ahead and edit this. Go to bridged, and we're going to turn this into actually just NAT. Now you can choose how much memory you want to use here. Mine's set to 4 gigs, that's fine. I've got a lot of RAM. If you do not, then go ahead and maybe turn this down to 2 gigs would be absolutely fine. Okay, so I'm gonna hit OK here. Now, I'm gonna power on this virtual machine, and then we're gonna wait for the other one to finish importing, which it has. So here, while we're waiting on this, go ahead and go to settings, and you're gonna wanna do the same thing. So network, no bridge, don't do bridge, we're gonna do NAT, okay? And then we're going to just enable the network adapter here. So you should have your NAT network set up. Remember that when you did that originally with our settings. If you need to, you can go back to tools, you can go to preferences, come in your network, make sure your NAT network is set up. Anyway, come in here, you can go to your settings, and again, make sure that this is on NAT. So, or NAT network, I apologize, NAT network right here, okay? And then I'm gonna hit okay. And then all you need to do is power this on. I'm going to show you with the virtual or the VMware, it's going to be the same process. Now, you can log in as the administrator. You're going to get credentials for every box. That is for the sole purpose that you can access the IP configuration and find the IP of this machine. Okay, just to make it a little bit easier. So there will be an accounts file in here, and here you can see the administrator password is password456 exclamation. So we're just going to do that. and we're going to make sure that this box is online and that we can communicate. So I'm going to quickly go to command, and you can install VMware tools if you want, make this pretty, all that jazz. I'm not going to do that here. I'm just going to quickly figure out what's what. You can see 192.168.138.135. I'm going to come over to Kali Linux. I've got a scan that we did for 134 up, but that's okay. I'm just going to ping 192.168.138.135. Okay, and you can see I'm getting a response back. And that's it. You need to make sure that you can communicate with your machine. So if you're running VirtualBox, make sure you spin it up, you log in, you figure out what it is that your IP address is, and go from there. Very, very straightforward. So that is it for this video. Go ahead and attempt to attack Blue. See if you can figure out what the deal is and where you can go and how you can exploit it. And meet me in the next video once you've attempted it to see if you were able to successfully root or system this machine. Thank you. So let's start by taking a look at our Nmap scan. Now, the IP address I got was 192.168.138.135, and not a lot of ports came back. So we got 445 back, and we can scroll through, get a little bit of information, like we see a NetBIOS name on this machine. We see that it's running Windows 7 Ultimate 7601 Service Pack 1. Doesn't appear to be part of a domain, just a work group. Same thing, work group, authentication level user. And really there's nothing here that is a big indication as to what this could be. So when we have this, as we discussed before, when we're looking at SMB specific vulnerabilities, because that would be my guess here, would be the vulnerability would be SMB related. We need to enumerate SMB in one of two ways, really. The first of that being, well, can we search based on version information that we see here? Can we search on this and see if there's anything vulnerable that could be there? Second of all, if we can't find anything right off the bat for this, maybe then we can go and use something like SMB client, do some enumeration. Maybe there's a null session we can connect to. Maybe there's a file or something, some sort of information with a username or password or something along those lines that gets us into this machine. Otherwise, we're pretty much stuck with version information. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and just copy this. And there's a reason that this is the first machine in our run through of the capstone, because this is the easiest, or should be the easiest. So we're going to go ahead and go out to Firefox, and I'm just going to go google.com. Come in here, we're going to search for this, and we're going to search for exploit. It already knows me. And we can look through some of these and see if there's anything here that really stands out. First thing for me, we've got a few. We got one here, one here. These just kind of say, they don't necessarily say what they are, so we might need to click into them. MS17010 keeps popping up quite a bit. Let's see if it tells us anything here about architecture. Really doesn't, just shows up as this. So we'll have to do some reading into this. This is a local privilege escalation. Doesn't really help us because we're not doing privilege escalation at this point. We're just looking to see if we can even get on this machine. Okay, this shows us, hey, MS17010. This is a exploit for it written in Python, it looks like. And it says, hey, okay, this could be our target. So we're going to take two different paths here. We're going to look at it first in Metasploit, and then we're going to take it from a manual path, and we're going to see if this is indeed what we're after. So let's go ahead and just go to MSF console. And yours might look a little bit different than mine depending on what version of Kali you're on, but the process should be the same. I'm on MSF 5. So we're going to go ahead and just search Eternal Blue. And I do know recently they combined all the Eternal Blues into one. So again, yours might be a little bit different than mine, but it should be the same process or concept. Now, the first thing we want to do is we want to look up this SMB scanner, right? We want to do an auxiliary. Our auxiliary modules are going to tell us what is there. It's going to be a check. It's not going to be so much an attack. It's more of scanning than anything else. There are some attacks in auxiliary modules, but they're not full on exploitation. So let's go ahead and just say use one. and we're going to go options in here. And all it's going to do for us is it's going to come in here. We're going to provide it with an RHost. We're going to run it, and it's going to provide a check. Okay, so we can just say set RHost to 192.168.138.135, whatever your IP address is. And then I'm going to say run. And it says host is likely vulnerable to MS17010. Okay, there's a second way to do this. So let's go ahead and just search Eternal Blue again. You can also search MS17-010 or however you want to do this. It should all show up. I'm going to use this number 3 here, the Eternal Blue one. We do know that we're on Windows 7, so the Windows 8 won't work for us. And PSExec we could run, but I'm going to go ahead and just use the one that is most popular and works usually out of the box. So I'm going to go ahead and just say use 3 and type in options. And in here, we have a verify option, which means we should have a check option here. So I'm going to again just say set RHost. I'm going to show you the check feature. 138.135. Okay. And then I'm going to say check. All right. And so check did exactly what the auxiliary module did for us. It says, hey, it's vulnerable. Okay. Or likely vulnerable. So what we need to do is we need to set a payload here. Now, something that you might not know yet at this point is that payloads are by default, they are set to 32-bit, at least in this example, because there could be a 32-bit exploit in here. Actually, this says 64-bit, so I could be lying to you. Some payloads are set to a 32-bit to start. Because we know that this is a 64-bit machine, or at least should be, given that it's enterprise, we're going to go ahead and set this to 64 bits just to be safe. So this is a practice that I take on if I know the architecture of the machine. I'm going to go in here and set my payload for myself. Now this should be 64-bit, but just to be safe, we're going to type in Windows and hit Tab. Because it only auto-completes to 64-bit, this is perfect. Now, I think where my mind was going is that I want this to be a Meterpreter shell, and I don't know if it defaults to Meterpreter. It might default to a reverse TCP of some sort. So we're going to go ahead and use a Meterpreter shell because we want a nice interface to have. So I'm going to go ahead and set that options one time, and I'm going to look at the lhost here, and we could just say set lhost over to, we could just call it ETH0, or you could set your IP address in here. Again, you can IPA or ifconfig, and whatever your IP address is, I'm running on ETH0, so whatever you choose, you could place here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and run this. Now, while this runs, this might not work on the first go. It might not work on the first few goes. This is going to try going through what are called different sets of grooms on here. And it looks like it worked right away. But sometimes this doesn't work right away. And if yours doesn't work right away, that's okay. It might take a few attempts through this first process, and you might have to hit run a few times for this to go. Now, I have chosen using Blue or Eternal Blue for this course because it's so relevant. This is a 4-year-old exploit now. And I see it on so many internal penetration tests. It's not even funny. Like, I wish it would just go away, but it is this easy to run and just get on a machine and gain access. And it's incredibly easy and incredibly prominent in environments. Think about environments where they have systems running that they can't update or do anything with, and you have this, or they just have poor patch management and you have this. It's so easy to get on a machine, and then you come in here and you say hash dump, and you dump out the hash. And now we've got administrator hash. We can go try to crack that. We can do pass the hash, which we're not there yet. We're going to get there in the Active Directory section. You're going to see what the differences are on this kind of stuff. But you can utilize these hashes to our advantage, and we're going to play around with that a little bit later in the course. So with that being said, this is something that you will likely see if you do become a pen tester. You'll see this in an environment, and it is really this easy to get into a machine like this. So we have used this now to come through here and gain access. We're going to go ahead and go back, and we're going to try doing it again, but we're going to do it through manual method. So I'm going to open up a new tab. All right, and we're going to come in here, and I'm going to search Google. Now, if we want to go look for manual methods of exploiting a system, we're likely going to use GitHub, perhaps exploit database. Now, this exploit database one, I'm not going to use only because it gets a little tricky with Eternal Blue. There's a few things that we have to do. I don't believe this one is just one that runs right out of the box. It has a little bit more information here than what's leading on. Now, we might need to reboot this machine, by the way. We'll give it a go and see if it works. It might not work out of the box because we've already exploited the system, but we'll try it anyway. So what we might want to do is something like Eternal Blue, and we might want to say GitHub. Okay, and we can come through here and look through different ones. I like to open a few, and I like to look at them and read the amount of stars that they have, read the descriptions that they have, detailed walkthroughs. You know, all of these have decent stars. This one doesn't have a great walkthrough. This one has a very good kind of detailed walkthrough, has video tutorials, has a decent amount of stars, and I honestly like it. So we're going to go ahead and just get the auto blue one from Endgame. So go ahead and find that and get to this. We're going to go ahead and copy this code. And there have been commits since 2021. So that's great. There's recent commits to this, which is awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and go into, I'm going to cd into opt, and I'm going to git clone this. And that's not what I should have been copying. Should have copied this, but we'll try it one more time. And paste here. All right. And then I'm going to cd into AutoBlue, and it gave instructions in here somewhere about how to install this. So let's go to installation, pip install requirements for Python 3, which we should be on at this point. So we're going to do pip install -r requirements, just like that. Let that install. Looks like everything is satisfied or installed, so that's good. From here, we're going to go ahead and do the usage. Now, there was a checker in here, so we can run Python with the checker. So I don't know, it says Python 2, so let's go ahead and run Python 2 with it. It could be Python 3 too, so we might run into an issue. Checker.py 192.168.138.135. Target is not patched. Testing name pipes. Okay, so this is something that I actually use on an assessment, regardless if it's this or the Metasploit version. I will take a screenshot of this. There are reasons sometimes where we won't run the exploit. If the environment has critical machines running, for example, like in a hospital, I might not run this exploit because this can take down a machine. And if I don't know what machine I'm taking down, who knows in a hospital, right? You don't want to make that mistake. So it's always better to play it on the safe side when we're running these exploits. If you don't know, you can always ask your client, say, hey, I've got this machine, here's the IP address, I want to run this exploit, is that okay? And get permission first. Now, there's a lot of ways, which you'll see when we get into the Active Directory exploitation part of the course, that we can compromise a domain and we can run all kinds of exploitation, own the whole domain controller, and not worry about tipping over the server by any means. This can tip over a server, so you want to be safe with these kinds of things. So with that said, I'm going to show you how to run this manually, but it's going to tip your box over. I'm going to give the secret away. It's going to tip your box over, and this is going to be the lesson learned from running this exploit. I'm going to show you the proper way to do it manually. With the version we have, it's not super easy to get a shell from the manual method. We could go around and play around and find one that works, but I'm going to show you this from here's how you would run it manually, but also here's the dangers of running this in an environment. And this is a perfect box to show you why we don't go run remote code execution on machines in an environment, because this can take down a machine. So let's go ahead and run through the process. I'm going to show you the process, and then we're going to knock this machine over. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to cd to the shellcode directory, and we're going to run shell prep. And I'll say this now and watch the exploit will work fine. So, oops, we're going to go ahead and just hit yes here. And then we're going to enter in our reverse connection, 192.168.138.128 is mine. I'm going to say 9999 for this. We can do 2222 for x86. We're not going to use it. Now we have the opportunity to use a meterpreter shell or generate a regular command shell. If we do the meterpreter shell, we can go into meterpreter and we can actually run it in the sense that we use a multi-handler and pull down. It's basically a listener. It is a listener, and it's going to pull down a interpreter shell for it. So it's just the shellcode that we're generating. We already used a interpreter shell to get the first shell on this. So now we're going to go back and we're going to go ahead and try to do this with a regular command shell. So you can press 0 if you want to try the interpreter shell method. You can also press 1 to generate the regular command shell method. We're going to go ahead and just do the regular command shell. We're going to generate a staged payload. Staged or stageless here should crash this machine. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to run this listener prep once this is all done. So it's doing this for us. We're going to go ahead and CD back in a second once this is done. All right, now I'm going to CD back and we're going to do listener prep. And this is going to run a listener in Metasploit for us, which is nice. We could just as easily run this with Netcat. We can just say NC NVLP like we have before. NC-NVLP like this, and whatever port we're listening on, all 9s before. So we're going to go ahead and just let this run its course as intended. And we're going to do 9999. We did 2222 here. And we're going to go ahead and say regular command shell, all the same things we did before, staged payload. And it's going to start this up for us, hopefully start up some listeners, and you should see a lot of work just go in. Okay, it's got all those listening. It's waiting for any sort of connection to come through. So the next thing we're going to do is, and it is using the multi-handler for us already, it's just using a shell reverse TCP instead of a interpreter reverse TCP here. So last thing we're going to do is run the exploit. So we're just going to say Python eternal blue like this exploit, and we're on 7.py. Our target is 192.168.138.135. Path to shellcode is just shellcode and then scall.bin. And we do not have to provide a number of groom connections. That's optional. We're going to run this and we'll cross our fingers. You never know. Might work. Doesn't look like it's working. We blue screen the machine. So this is a perfect example of why you just don't willy-nilly run this in an environment, okay? So a good lesson learned, honestly, because if you're in a critical environment, you have no idea what that machine does. Imagine if this was something in a hospital controlling equipment that was being used during surgery. Who knows? If you took that down, it could be very, very, very bad. So it's good to see the other side of it. Again, get permission before running something like this, unless you know that your environment's safe. It's okay to take down some machines, etc. But usually that's not the case. So with that, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next machine. Hopefully you got this and got through the walkthrough just fine. So I'll see you in the next machine as we walk through that and hopefully take down another box. Okay, in this video, I'm going to show you how to quickly open up the Academy machine in both VMware and VirtualBox and how to set it up. After this, you should have seen a Linux setup and a Windows setup, so you should have no more issues setting these up. I have full faith in you beyond this, so repeat the process. If you need to go back and watch the video, just come back and watch one of these. Anyways, we're going to open a virtual machine. If you are in VMware, I'm going to go into my folder that has it, Capstone, and I'm going to go to Academy and just double click, open that up. It's going to ask me where I want to put it. I'm going to go default settings. You can choose wherever you want. I'm just going to hit import. It's going to take a minute to import. While that's happening, I'm going to show you, and you might see a retry. Just go ahead and hit retry on that. It should work. While we're waiting, I'm going to go ahead and show you the other side of things, which is VirtualBox. Go ahead and hit File. Go ahead and hit Import Appliance. And then just go select your file. I've got it for copy paste purposes. It's a lot easier. And VMware thinks it can just take over. It's wrong. So in here, make sure you just have your OVF file that you downloaded. Hit next. And then come in here and you're going to see these settings. You can go ahead and just run the default settings for now and just import. We'll change the settings once we have it imported. So go ahead and import that. On VMware, we're just going to ping pong back and forth real quick. Under the settings for the Academy, go ahead and just hit Edit Virtual Machine Settings. In here, this is a Linux machine, so 1 GB of memory is fine. We don't need a lot. Come to your network adapter and make sure that it says NAT and not bridged. Hit OK. Go ahead and log in. Now you can power on this virtual machine, get that going. In the next video, I'm going to show you the password, which is just root TCM. Same thing here on the Academy. Go ahead and go to settings. We're going to go to network. Make sure your NAT network is selected. Remember, we created a NAT network. Make sure your NAT network is selected and that you are on the same network as your Kali Linux machine, or you will not be able to communicate with it. So with that out of the way, you can go ahead and power this on depending which one you're on. Catch me in the next video when we will talk about logging in, finding the IP address, and getting started with attacking this machine. I'll catch you over in the next video. All right, on to the next machine. This one is called Academy, and this was created by Alec, especially for us. Now we're going to attack this machine and we're going to get a low-level user. We're going to pivot into a second low-level user, and then we're going to root this machine. If you did not root this machine, do not stress about it. These boxes are meant to be hard if you are a beginner, and you are meant to walk through with us and see all these different techniques, tips, and tricks, and just the idea and mindset as well. So do not stress if you are having issues trying this on your own. That's 100% okay. So I have imported the machine. You should be familiar with this. At this point, all I'm going to show you is how to log into the machine, similar to what we did with the Windows box. Now the password here, the username is root, the password is TCM. Tango Charlie Mike. Okay, we come in, we're going to run DH client, hit enter. Okay, mine says file exists. That's because I already ran this. You go ahead and run it. It should take a second to load. Once that loads, go ahead and type IPA, and you should get an IP address back. Okay, mine says 192.168.138.129. Yours might say something incredibly different. But go ahead and go with whatever the IP address says here, because that's what you're going to use. Now, with that out of the way, I went ahead through the magic of editing and ran a Nmap scan. You're welcome to do this as well. -A, -P, -T4, IP address. Nothing new at this point, okay? What came back for us was a few different things here. We have port 21 open, and we have a VSFTPD, say that 3 times fast, 3.0.3, and it says anonymous FTP login is allowed. Okay, it says, hey, there's a note.txt in here. Okay, that could be interesting. Now keep in mind, everything that we're doing in these machines is going to be very gamified, very CTF, or capture the flag, and that's exactly what we're doing, is we're capturing the flag. So don't stress about this being incredibly realistic at this point. We're going to get into the more practical stuff as we get into the Active Directory pen testing section. We're really just trying to focus on some of the basic concepts and some of the things that you'll see if you go do any CTF events or you go on to any other certifications or anything like that. So this is a good introduction, kind of jump into the pool, maybe get your feet wet first into hacking. So with this in mind, we've got port 21, we've got port 22, we've got port 80. Now, 80 is a web server, 22 is SSH. My strategy here, when I see port 22, I immediately erase it off the board. Now, that's not to say that it couldn't have an option of attack here. You could brute force it. You could go in there and try like a root username, or if you knew other usernames, you can go in there and just try to brute force the password, and maybe you get lucky and log in. Usually on CTFs, that is not the intended route. Now, for things like, say, example, a pen test, you might want to brute force SSH because there's a couple reasons. One is there a weak password? Can I log in with a root user on a weak password for this machine? If so, that's bad. You tell your client, hey, this is bad. You're using weak passwords. Number two, you want to see if your client can pick you up, meaning, do they detect you when you are running brute force scans? If you have 500 attempts against an SSH login and you're still able to go attempt after attempt and nothing has been detected, you have not been prevented on that network, then that's an issue. You should probably bring that up to the client, say, hey, I ran a brute force against this login, and you didn't detect me, you didn't see me do anything. We'll talk about that more in the report writing section and some of the things we talk about detection wise, but that's another example of something you want to test for and see if you're detected. You're testing detection throughout an entire pen test. So you want to say, hey, did you see me scanning? Did you see me brute forcing? Did you see me running exploits? Did your antivirus pick me up? Where was I caught during this pen test, and where can you improve? So something about SSH, a little tangent there. But with that out of the way, port 21's open, port 80's open. Now we see down here that it says, hey, we're getting an it works page, which means that it's just a default Apache 2 web server. We can go out to this web server and just take a look. 192.168.138.129. You can see this is just a basic, hey, it works Apache 2 Debian page. That tells me that we're likely running on PHP on the back end, though that doesn't mean that entirely. This is just kind of an indicator. When we see Apache, I'm assuming PHP on the back end. So let's go back here. Now we could do a couple things. We need to identify what's going on behind the scenes, because all we're seeing is a default web page, which, by the way, this is a finding on a pen test. So you would say, hey, this is just revealing too much information. Why do you even have this out there? Is this web server meant to be up? If it is, then take away this default web page and make it, make it say, hey, if you're not supposed to be here, then don't be here. Anything but a default web page, because all we're seeing is architecture here. If it's not supposed to be there, from a hacker's perspective, this means poor hygiene. You're just leaving ports open. You're just throwing computers on the network and on the internet willy-nilly, and this just means that you likely have poor hygiene, and we want to look into you further, because if this is something you're doing, you might be using bad passwords or not patching, etc., etc. So anyway, off that tangent, going back to the scan, I'm curious to know what the note says. We'll go check that out. We have anonymous login, so we'll start there, and then we're going to go ahead and take a look at the different pages that could be hiding behind the default page. So I'm going to leave this up, and now we're going to go take a look first at the FTP. So in here, I'm going to make this bigger. Okay, so FTP, all you got to do is 192.168.138.129, or whatever your IP address is. And then I like to just type anonymous twice. Okay, we get an anonymous login. We are successful. We can come in here and say ls. All right, and we have a note.txt in here. So all we need to do is type in get note.txt. That's it, and we're pretty much done. So the option here is we have FTP open. Now, there's a possibility that we could utilize this. So we have the ability with FTP to put files and get files. We just got a file. We can come put something on here. The only issue is we don't know where on this machine that this note.txt is stored. If for some reason this note file was stored in like the, I don't know, this Apache server, if we came in here and we just went like /note.txt and we saw it, all right, then that could be of interest, because we know the directory that we're in. We could come in here, just upload malware, come up here, execute the malware because we have execution, and then we could get a shell and keep pushing forward. But in this instance, we don't know where it is. There's a good chance it's not even in the web server. If for some reason it was in the web server, we could use that to execute, and that is a strategy that we might see at some point. But here, in this instance, unless I know where this is, the ability to put files in here does nothing for me. In a real world scenario, maybe we can go look at getting social engineering or getting somebody to open a file or something along those lines. But for here, for this capture the flag type style, we are only focused on getting this note, and that's pretty much it. Also, secondary finding on a pen test would be this, because we see Apache 2.4.38. It's telling us it's running a Debian server, which means we're attacking Linux. So if we were doing this blind, didn't know that, now we know. We know the Apache version, we know Debian. We're getting a little bit of information, and we're just compiling that information right now. Debian server, Apache, PHP most likely. Okay, all of this is information gathering, and that's all we want to do is gather as much information as possible. Now let's go ahead and exit out. And I want to just cat out this note.txt. Okay, so it says, hello Heath, Grimmy has set up the test website for the new academy. I told him not to use the same password everywhere. He will change it ASAP. I couldn't create a user via the admin panel, so instead I inserted directly into the database with the following command. All right, so we get looks like a database information here with values. Now it says the student regno number is what you use for login. So student regno here, you see this ties up to the first. And then we see student photo, and there's nothing in for the student photo. We see password, then we get password here, student name, okay, pin code going on. So this is pretty sensitive information. If this were on a pen test, which I've actually seen something similar to this, I've been on pen tests where I have seen open FTP servers. I've seen open web directories where they had backups of their entire website on there with database passwords and everything. It is, it's realistic in a sense that you could run into something like this. It would be pretty bad. So anyway, this is coming from our friend J Delta, and we're going to go ahead and just grab this password here. We've got this. Now the issue is this is likely not a password. This is likely a hash, and we can copy this and see first before we go down that route. This might be a password, but we can copy, and let's just take a quick look. We can go, let me CD back out of this here. We can do something like this. We can type in hash identifier like this and just hit enter. Okay, this is built into Kali Linux. You just go ahead and paste selection, hit enter, and this will tell you all the things that it thinks it is. This is saying, hey, most likely it's an MD5 hash. Okay, so we have an MD5 hash. Guess what? We can crack that hash. I'm going to go ahead and exit out of here with Control C. And if we go to Google and do a quick Google search, so I'll give you time to go do a Google search, but all you have to do is say hashcat, which is the tool we're going to use to crack this password, crack MD5 hash. Here we get a blog that says how to crack MD5 hashes. You go into that, and it says, hey, in order to do that, you need to run hashcat-m for module and 0 with your hashes file, and then a password list like rocku.txt. So we haven't gotten much into hash cracking in this course, and we're going to talk about it a little bit. We'll talk about it a lot more when we get into the actual Active Directory hacking, because we start cracking passwords there. It becomes a lot more important. Here, we're just going to play around with it a little bit. So I'm going to show you this only this one time. I'm going to show you this on a Linux machine. This is running in a virtual machine here. Okay, so we're running hashcat. We're about to run hashcat in a virtual machine. Typically, we do not want to do this because hashcat is going to be running off of our CPU. Okay, it's going to be running off our CPU inside a virtual machine. That's going to make it run a lot slower. Hash cracking runs off of GPUs. Okay, so we're running off of our graphics card, not our CPU. So we want to do that. So when I run hash cracking in the real world, or even later in this course, you're going to see me running it on Windows because that is my base operating system. I will take that, I'll run it off there because it's going to use my GPU. It's going to use my graphics card. And that's what I want. So in this instance, it's going to go a lot slower, but because it's going to be an easy password to crack, we don't have to worry about it too much. But if you want to be good at cracking passwords and practice that, definitely make sure you're using it on your base OS, regardless of what it is, because it's going to crack a lot faster than running it in your virtual machine. So we're going to do a hashcat. Actually, before we do that, go ahead and type in locate rocku.txt. You should have it somewhere. Okay. You might have a tarred version of it or a gzip version of it. You can open that if you navigate to this folder, like user share, come in here to your folder, like literally go into browse network or file system and go into user share, etc. You can get there if for some reason you do not have rocku.txt. In the later version of Kali, they already have it here. So I'm assuming that it's here. If not, if all you see is a gzip, go ahead and just unzip that. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to say, actually, one more thing I forgot. You can go ahead and do a mousepad or gedit or whatever you want. You could do a hashes.txt. Copy and paste the hash. It's a little small probably for your screen from what you could see here. Copy and paste the hash into this hashes.txt, the one we got right here. Okay, make sure it's in a file. So once we've done that, go ahead and run hashcat. with a -m of 0. That's a module. So we're going to be attacking the module of 0, which correlates to MD5 hashing. We're going to give it the file of hashes.txt, and we're going to give it a word list to run through of rocku.txt. Okay, and I'm going to scroll up just so you can see this. It's going to run. It might take a minute to run. It took me a couple seconds here. Gets through it pretty quick. Rocku runs fairly fast on a VM, and this one picked it up pretty quick. So the password of what's coming up is student. Password of student. Not very great password. Weak password policy. Okay, so we have a username. We have a user ID. We have a password of student, but we have no idea how we're going to do this. Okay, where are we going? Now, I can take some educated guesses here. Like, for example, they're saying, hey, this is for the new academy, and this box is called academy, and there's a good likelihood that if you were to do a /academy on the web page, that maybe you find it, right? And we can go academy and go find it, but I don't want to just show you and cheat. So let's go back and we're going to walk through it. We talked about directory busting with dirbuster. I want to show you a couple other tools that we can use and show you the pros and cons of both of them. So open up a new tab. Make sure we're going to use two different tools. So I want to show you both. Go ahead and use a tool called dirb, D-I-R-B. And for dirb, all we have to do, I do believe, is just type in 192.168.138.129 and hit enter. So this is going to go off of the website. It's going to run on its own word list. It's going to go in here and try to find stuff. Immediately, it found phpMyAdmin. The issue is with this, it's just going to go in and start like going into the phpMyAdmin and looking for directories, and it's finding all kinds of directories. And this is going to take a minute. So this is one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is using a tool called ffuf. I don't know how you say it. Ffuf. Whatever, everybody's got their own pronunciation. If you do an apt install of ffuf like this, you hit enter. I already have it, but yours should pick it up. Okay, we're gonna run the tool just like this. So we're gonna say ffuf once yours is installed. Do a -w, that is for word list. And your word list should be in user, share, word lists. And we can do dirbuster, that's fine. This is where all the word lists are. And then I just like to double tab or tab around, and we're going to use the medium word list. That's my go-to for most cases. We could use the lowercase if we wanted to. I think either are fine. Okay. From here, we're going to go ahead and back up. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a colon here, and I'm going to type in fuzz. Okay, this is what we're going to fuzz. We're going to do a -u, and we're going to do http 192.168.138.129, and we're going to say /fuzz. So what we're telling this is, hey, with this word list, we're going to be fuzzing with this word list. We're going to fuzz this parameter right here. This is exactly what we're doing. Okay, we're going to hit enter. And this is immediately going in and just doing all that we want to do. It found Academy right away, phpMyAdmin right away, and this is very fast. Found a server status, and all it's doing is looking one thread deep. So it's not doing what dirb is doing. Dirb is going and saying, hey, I found phpMyAdmin. Now I'm going to go through and find every single directory inside of that, and every single directory inside of those directories, which can take a while. This one is saying, I'll find all the first level directories, and if you want to go search those, you can. Like, we could type in academy/fuzz. There's commands in here that we can do to take this further. We can limit which response statuses we want. Maybe we only want 200s, or maybe we want 302s, depending on this. So maybe we don't want any 401s or 403s or 405s. We only want the ones that come back as 200 guaranteed. So in this case, we're looking like we got a 301 from Academy, so there's a redirect there. Same with the phpMyAdmin. All right, so with that in mind, this is how you can find it. Found it quick. This one's still going. There's different strategies, different tools, everything else. This one's pretty nice. There's a lot of tools that come out for directory busting all the time. Latest ones are being built in Rust, which is interesting because Rust is really fast. There's ones built in Go because Go is really fast. So you pick your poison on a directory busting tool and you just run with it. So anyway, We're going to go ahead and enter in that registration number. So you can go ahead and just come copy it from here. And then you're going to go ahead and paste that. And then the password is student. For me, I've changed the password in here because I've already gone through this box. But you'll be brought to a change password screen. So you could type in student, change it if you want to. You really don't have to. You can come in here and start clicking through, hey, I want to enroll in a course, enroll history, my profile, change password, etc. So this is really what we have. Now, the interesting thing in here is that we have this upload photo feature. So if we look at this, we can come in here and say, okay, how do we want to attack a website? What are some ways that we can get code execution? We might be able to perform like LFI, RFI attacks on this and pull down information or execute code. Maybe there's SQL injection somewhere in here we can pull down and dump the database. We did see a PHP my admin. Maybe there's more behind this, behind the scenes that we can do. We can also go out, and something that we didn't really look at on the first scan is we can do a version check. Like, we didn't check on this version to see if there's a vulnerability there. That would be something you can do. Same with the OpenSSH, same with the Apache. You can go and do those. I'm only not showing you that because I'm saving time here, but the correct methodology would definitely be to go check these as well to see if there's any vulnerabilities. Now, there is in here this is a online registration. You can look and see if there's any way to pull down like viewing the source and see if maybe anything in here would tell you, hey, what CMS is this? What is this built off of? Because clearly this is a CMS of some sort that they've used. Now, with that in mind, we can go back and we can kind of just look and see if we can find anything. The first thing we might want to do is just come in here and do a browse and come and say, okay, I'm going to upload, let me go to my desktop. I'm going to upload a picture of a dog. You don't have to do this. I just want to see if it works. Okay, so I uploaded a picture of a dog. Perfect. Now, the question here is, and by the way, we could see up here that PHP is in use. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, by the way, but PHP is in use. It should say my-profile.php. What we want to do is we want to see if we can upload a file that is not a dog. Okay, like not a JPEG, not a GIF, not whatever, PNG. We want to see if we can upload something that's not a photo and abuse the file upload system. If they're doing no checks here and we can just upload this, they are in big trouble. So what we can do is we can right click and go, we can view image, which will tell us kind of where the image is stored. So it's stored in Academy student photo / and this is dog.jpg, which is what I uploaded. So what we can do, let me refresh this. What we can do is try to upload a reverse shell here and see if we can't get a connection back by viewing this. Let's see if we can upload something malicious. Now we know this is Apache, so we're going to upload via PHP. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. What I want to do is go out and we're going to do a quick search. We're going to go to Google and we're going to say PHP reverse shell. And there is a great one out there from Pentest Monkey. Okay, first hit should be up here. There's other ones that you can use. People have their preferences and their favorites. This one is 6 years old and still works perfectly. So all we're going to do is go raw here and copy this. Control A, Control C, very quick. And what I did was I went ahead and put this into a file here. So let's go ahead and clear screen. You can just do mousepad, gedit, nano, whatever you want. Actually, I might nano this just so you can see. But I called this shell.php. And then I pasted it in here. That's all you got to do. Shell.php, paste it in here. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. You're going to get to this little part after the comments. And you're going to see, hey, it says change this, change this. You need to put in your IP address. Whatever your IP address of your attacker machine is, that needs to go here. So if you need to open up a new tab, come in here, do IPA or ifconfig, 192.168.138.131. Come back. That matches what I've got. 1234, in my opinion, is fine. You can leave it as is for this machine. So, Control X. This is fine. You can hit yes, save if it asks you to. Just hit Y and enter, and that will save your shell.php. So we have shell.php. We need a listener. We're going to do a reverse shell here. So 1234 on the NVLP on Netcat. This should not be unfamiliar to you. You should already be aware of this. So we're going to go here, and now we've got this listening. We're waiting for something to happen. So we're going to go back into this, and we're going to upload this malicious file. So I put this in my root folder, shell.php. Click update, come in here. You can see nothing's happened. Let's see if it tries to execute. Oh, it already executed. So we don't even have to go to, like, we don't have to right click and go to that that location. It already executed that file when it loaded this page, which is crazy. So we have a shell here, which is great. So if we do a who am I, you can see we are the www-data user. So we are not an admin on this machine. We are not root. We can do a sudo-l, but they rudely took away sudo. We could type in which sudo and see if it's there. Locate sudo. Maybe they put it somewhere else. Locate not found either. So they're playing a little bit of games with us, just a little bit, because we should be able to run and see, hey, what privileges do we have as sudo? But it's not there. That's okay though. We're still going to be fine. So what I want to do next is we land on a machine. We're not a root user. We need to perform privilege escalation. This is where things get fun, and this is where we're going to take a bunch of winding roads to get to where we're getting. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use a tool called linpeas, and we're going to utilize that to do some searching. Linpeas is a automated tool that goes out and does basically hunting for any sort of privilege escalation. And I kind of cheated a little bit. Let me go to Google and just type in literally LIN, like Linux, PEAS, like the food, peas. Hit enter. You'll see it here in GitHub. And you see a linpeas.sh updated 3 days ago. Nice. All right. And this is going to go through and perform all kinds of checks to see if there are any escalation privileges or privilege escalation or paths for us with privilege escalation, what I should say. So you can go in here, again, raw, Control A, Control C. And what I like to do, and this is how I actually operate, is I like to make dir on a transfers folder. I call it transfers. And I've already got one, so I'm just going to cd into transfers. Or transfer is fine as well. ls in here, and linpeas.sh is already in here. So you can nano linpeas.sh, same thing. Just go ahead and get it into this folder and have a nice little transfer folder. Make sure you copy, paste it, put it into a file, and have it ready to roll. So what we're going to do is we're going to host up a web server. So we're going to say Python 3 -m for module, and we're going to type in http-server 80. Okay, and this is going to host up a web server in this folder. We're going to go and grab this file on this machine. So a good place to put a file that we want to dump on this machine is we're just going to put it right into the temp folder. So cd into temp, print working directory. We're in /tmp. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to do a wget http your attacker machine IP. So I'm at 131 /linpeas.sh. Hit enter. It should copy over. You could see it coming through. Do a quick ls. I already had linpeas on here because I was running through this box earlier, but I'm going to use the original linpeas. So pretend with me. We need to make it executable. chmod +x, or change mode, linpeas.sh. Okay. Now we're going to run it. ./linpeas.sh. Just like that. Hit enter. It's going to start just flying across the screen. It might take a minute to go through. We're going to go through some of this, but I'm going to give you the general gist of what you're looking for and the things that you want to look for in here. So I'm going to take this and scroll back up to the top. If yours isn't done running yet, that's fine. I kind of just want you to watch anyway on this one. So we run it. We get a nice little Ninja Turtle. Cute. And you go through and it tells you the legend on here, okay? And it says, hey, red, yellow means 95%. Could be a privilege escalation vector. Red, you should look into it, and then it gives you different ones. So really, we're looking for red, and we're just trying to see if we can find anything in here that could be of interest for us. Now, As we're scrolling through, it gives us information about the the Linux distribution, the release, all that could be useful if we have some sort of escalation against this. There are different types of escalation that we could use, and the release information could be important to us, though it is not for this machine, so we're going to skip over it for now. You go through, it tells you all kinds of stuff about the all the operating system, what's running on it, and it's looking for anything that could be of interest. Now it's telling you, hey, what do we have that we can run? This just says, yes, this is a virtual machine. Keep going through, keep going through. This is looking at cron jobs, which we'll talk about in a little bit. This is looking for any sort of systemd timers or cron jobs. We have no cron jobs running that look relevant to us. This is just running Apache 2. This is running a, and this actually looks like it could just be the processes running, not even the cron jobs. So these are just the processes running. Nothing of interest to us right now. Scrolling through here, we're just going to look and see if we find anything of interest. Now there is a highlighted red and yellow here with home grimy backup.sh. We're going to copy that bad boy, see what it is. And then from here, you're going to go ahead and just keep scrolling. So we come through, keep scrolling. And a lot of this is just information that is provided with us. What is of interest? And for this machine now, you're welcome to read through this. There's a lot of data to read through. I like to scroll through kind of really quick and just see if anything stands out. Not at this pace, but like right here, look, we're scrolling through and we see, hey, there is a MySQL password of my very secure pass. That is of interest to us. It looks for passwords, and we're going to scroll down to the bottom. I'll show you kind of what it looks like. So if we scroll all the way down, we start scrolling up a little bit, you'll see that the my very secure pass shows up again. It shows up right here, and it tells you, hey, this is in this includes config.php file. So that's really what we're looking for. We've got a password up here, manage students at 12345, so we can go look at that if we wanted to. And some things in here that we want to make note of. So maybe we open up a notepad, like we come into a text editor, we just do a paste here because the Grimmy's of interest. We found the password of my very secure pass, which maybe we want to just copy this whole thing out. Okay, and I might put that into my little notes as well. And maybe I want to read this document and see what's in here as well. So this is of interest. We want to go through and just see anything of interest. Now I am skipping ahead just a little bit only because to save time for the video, there will be other opportunities to learn privilege escalation. And again, we have the privilege escalation course if you want to go through this in more detail. This is again just trying to get your feet wet, introduced to the idea and understanding what we're doing here. So now let's go ahead and let's look at the file that we just found first. We'll wait on the Grimy file. Let's go ahead and just cat this out. Okay, so if we cat out this config.php, we see that we get a SQL user of Grimy. We get my very secure pass. Okay, we get some information there. So we can maybe try to see if this works for us anywhere. It's a SQL user database. Maybe we can get into the SQL database and find some information. That is one option, though I did not see any sort of information for SQL unless we could log into phpMyAdmin with this on that web panel that we were looking for. So that's something that could work. We also want to see if there's anything, maybe we go cat etc password, see if that works for us. Okay, so etc password is showing us all the users on the machine. Of interest, we like to scroll down to the bottom and we see a user of Grimy. And it says Grimmy's an administrator, which is interesting. So it's pointing to Grimy being a user on this machine. So it doesn't hurt to just copy this password and see what we can do with Grimy. So what we can do here is I'm going to go ahead and just go to a new tab. And I'm going to cat. And by the way, we should have known that anyway, because there was a folder called home grimy backup.sh or home Grimy. So Grimy would have been an indicator anyway that that we were up against a user named Grimmy. So we do SSH, we can do Grimmy at, and this machine is 192.168.138.129 for me. Go ahead and hit enter once you got it in there. And it should ask you your first time about a fingerprint. Just type in yes, hit enter, and then go ahead and paste in that password that we just got. And maybe I copied it wrong, so I'm gonna go copy that one more time. Okay, and here we go. So now we are in this machine. We don't have sudo access, I don't believe. Sudo-L. Again, it says sudo not found. It could be that we have a broken version of bash, or they intentionally removed it because it's just CTF. That's one of the first checks I do. History is another check, though I have some history in here from myself. So you might not have any history when you come in here. This is just all me doing this. Now, one thing that I do again is I like to come in and I like to download LinPs, run it again, see if anything's changed. I'm going to skip over that process, but I'm just telling you for the process. What we want to do is we want to make sure we look at the file that's of interest. Okay, so that file, when we went and saw, was in the home Grimmy folder. So let's just go ahead and cd to home Grimmy. And we're gonna ls in here, and all we have is backup.sh. So let's run cat backup.sh. So what we have is, it looks like it's removing a temp backup file, .zip. It's zipping up a backup.zip from this var HTML Academy include. So it looks like it's doing a backup of the Academy. And then it's changing the permissions of the temp file. So if we look at temp, there may or may not be a backup.zip sitting in there. So what this is telling me is this is probably going out there and doing periodic checks, or a script is running periodically to see if, or to perform this backup. So it could be running every hour, every day, every week. We don't know what it's running. Now, we can see if by chance we have access to that information. When we were looking at the cron information from LinPs, I didn't see it in there. We could also do a cron tab -L to see. Here we have no cron tab for Grimmy. So what's happening possibly is that Grimmy doesn't have the cron tab. We can try to see if we can cron tab of a user, look at root and just do a -list. But it says you must be privileged. So we have to run sudo, but we don't have sudo. So we won't be able to switch into root to use that as well. We don't have privileges to do that. So without having any cron tab information or seeing it running when we looked at the cron, we could do a cron tab -E as well. I just don't, I mean, there's nothing in here. So this isn't giving us any indicator. And a cron job is something that will run for us, by the way. And we tell it, hey, I want to run this script every hour, every minute, every day, every week. We could tell it when we want it to run. So this is a realistic scenario in that sense that cron jobs are used in administration. So from here, if we don't have that, there's something else called a system D timer. We can look at that from systemctl and just say list timers, and come through like this and see if there's any script in here running that's in a timer. And I actually don't see anything here. You can hit Q for quit, and that'll exit this. So when we have this situation, there's a tool that we can use out there that will actually give us more information of what's running with the processes than what is leading on. Remember, we ran a PS with the we ran PS for everybody with the script, the LinPs. We saw it. We didn't see anything in there that was any indication of this backup.sh. So if we want validation and confirmation that this is running on a timer, we can go ahead and go out, and there's a tool out there that is pretty neat. It's called PSPy, PSPY. And all you have to do, literally all you have to do, Google this, by the way, I'm gonna do it just so we could say we did it. PSPy, literally the first thing that comes up. So in here, what you wanna do is go ahead and download the 64-bit static version. And when you download that, you might get put into your downloads folder. all you have to do is, we'll open a new tab here real quick. All you have to do is do a move command if you don't remember. So move downloads pspy, and then just put that in your transfer /pspy. Okay, pspy 64 is actually what it's called. I'm just winging it here. I've already got it in my folder, but make sure you move it over to your folder, or if you want to keep it in downloads and run from there, that's fine as well. Just note that I already have this in my folder here. So all you have to do now is cd over to your temp folder. If ILS, I've got some stuff in here. Looks like limpy's backup.zip is sitting in here. What I'm going to put in here is this pspy, and we're going to run it. So I'm going to do a wget. And remember, I already have my listener for my web server running from earlier. So this is just going to be a simple grab and go. And this is pspy 64. Grab this. All right, ls chmod plus x on pspy 64. And we're going to run it. Now, what this is doing is showing us all the processes running on the machine, all of them. And we could scroll through this and kind of see, and yours is going to look different than mine. Don't worry about the PID numbers. Don't worry about the timing. Don't worry about anything like that. All you got to do is scroll through here and see if we can see that backup.sh running. And we can come through, see if there's anything in here. And look, now it showed up, backup.sh. I don't think that was there before. So what happens is it just waits for this to run, and then when it runs, we're seeing it come through here. So that looked like it just ran. If we wanted true confirmation, we could sit here and wait another minute and see if this runs, because my hunch is it's running every minute because this is capture the flag box. So we could do that. I'm going to tell you that it is running every minute, so we don't have to do that, just to save a little bit of time. So Control-C, get back into your Grimmy at Academy, and now we are going to abuse this in our favor. Let's go ahead and go to cd home Grimmy. We're gonna go back, make sure you have your backup.sh in there. And now what we're gonna do is I want you to go to Google, and you go and say bash reverse shell one-liner. Okay? And there is a reverse shell cheat sheet from Pentest Monkey. You could also type that in. Click on that. Here you will see right up front, you will see bash-i. You're gonna see this right here. This is a one-line reverse shell. This is awesome. All we're gonna do is put this into a shell script, which we already have. We have it right here. We're gonna put that in there, and when it executes, it's going to perform reverse shell. So what we wanna do is we wanna modify this a little bit. So let's go ahead and open up a notepad real quick. It might be a little bit small on your screen for you, but what I'm doing is I'm putting in where it says 10.0.0.1. I'm putting 192.168.138.131, which is my attacker machine, and I'm going to change the IP address to 8081, or to the port to 8081. You are more than welcome to keep it at 8080. I'm just doing this because I ran through this once earlier, and there's a possibility that port is still out there lingering. So just for the video purpose, I'm changing it to 8081. So what does that mean I have to do? Netcat, NVLP, set up that reverse shell listener. And here's what's going to happen. We're going to come in here and we're going to say nano backup.sh. You can come in here, tab down a couple times, and if you hit Control-K, it deletes a line. That's some magic if you didn't know it. And you can come right click, paste selection, maybe paste clipboard. Okay. And what we're going to do is this is going to execute bash-i dev tcp 192.168. It's going to call out to our IP address with this. And if our hunch is correct that this is running as the root user, we're going to get a root shell on this. So what's happening is this cron job is out there. It's running as root. It's executing as root. And when it executes that script, it's going to execute as a root shell, which it just did. You could see root at Academy. Who am I? Okay, so let's cd to root just for the fun of the game. Maybe cd root ls. Okay, and then cat flag.txt. Says, congrats, you rooted this box. Looks like this CMS isn't so secure. I hope you enjoyed it. If you had any issues, please let us know in the course Discord. Happy hacking. Great. That was an example of a box with a couple of pivots, couple of different privilege escalations, and very gamified, very capture the flag. You will likely never do most of this on a pen test ever in your life, but it's still important to learn from the hacking process as we build up into this and then as we get into more of the Active Directory stuff. So that is it for this video. We're going to go ahead and call it here, and I'm going to go ahead and catch you in the next one. Okay, on to the box dev. Now let me preface this with it is raining pretty bad here, so if you hear thunderstorms or anything in the back, consider it part of the ambiance. But we're going to do another box from Alec. Thank you, Alec, for creating this wonderful machine. And this box is a Linux machine, so you should already have it set up. We're past the setup stage. You should know how to set it up. Come in here. I already have an mmap scan ran against it. So if you do not have an mmap scan ran against it, you should go ahead and do that. Pause if you need to. Otherwise, you could just follow along. So running the mmap scan, we can see that we have port 22 SSH. And remember what we said about SSH? Well, we're not going to look at it right now. It's nothing that's, at least in my experience, I've ever found an exploit for. So unless we have credentials or something for that, we're not going to get into SSH. We have something on port 80 called Bolt installation error for Apache web server. Okay, that's an indicator this might be a Linux machine already because we're seeing Debian. That's a nice indication. We have RPC bind, which we can enumerate RPC, though it's not that advantageous for us right this instant. That gets into more advanced stuff. Honestly, as a beginner, we're going to leave RPC alone, though there is some information gathering that you can get out of RPC. As of right now, we're going to just kind of push it to the side because we've got more important things to focus on and more common things to focus on. So we have 2049 NFS, which is a network file share. Think of it like almost like SMB, like Samba for file sharing. This is a network file share. We can potentially mount to a file share here, so that might be of interest for us. We also have HTTP here for 8080. It just says connection Apache Debian PHP info page. We've got some Mount D and nlock manager. We're not going to worry about any of these ports. Which stand out to me are 8080, 2049, and 80. Okay, so keep those in mind. As you go through these more, as you get better at this, it'll be easier for you to understand which ports you're looking for, which ports you can kind of just throw to the side for now. So with that, we're going to go ahead and take a look at 80. We're going to take a look at 8080. Then we'll take a look at the network file share. So going out to the web page, I have Google open. I'm just going to go 192.168.138.137. Go here, and I'm also going to copy this and take this out to port 8080. And you can see that we have a couple of pages. One is a Bolt installation error page, which is interesting. We can come out and look at this. It looks like there's something called Bolt. We can actually go to the real web page here and see what's running. Bolt CMS. So we'll keep that in mind. Maybe they're running Bolt CMS. We could put that in our back pocket in our notes. It looks like there's an installation error. It's talking about the folder that should be installed in, which these are Linux folders. So this is more indication that we're likely attacking a Linux machine here. So we can do some research on this, but let's put that in our back pocket for now. Other website here is on port 8080. We're getting a PHP info page, which is nice. Sometimes this can disclose some information. You can actually read through this and see like here's the path, here's like the webmaster, here's the IP address that we're pointing at. So there's some different things in here that we can look at, and possibly if we were attacking this page, there could be some information disclosure in here that could tell us what the setup is of this PHP page. And that could tell us like, hey, maybe there's file inclusion, maybe there's uploading allowed, different attacks that might be enabled because of a setting that is configured or misconfigured in this PHP myinfo type page, so or PHP info page. So we have two pages here that are, I mean, there's nothing really there. It's just like, hey, PHP info, Bolt, installation error. So we kind of want to look under the hood. This is just common tactic here that we're going to open up a new tab. I'm going to open up two of them. And we're really just going to enumerate this a little bit further. I just want to see how far we can take this. If it is what it is, like port 80 is literally just a bullet installation error page, that's fine, but we need to confirm that. So we're going to use ffuff, whatever you want to call it, and we're going to do a quick scan on this, and we're going to do a user share wordless, and then I go to dirbuster, and just like before, you can just tab, and I use the medium word list. I put a colon. I don't know how to, if you know the trick of getting it to line up immediately after, let me know. Otherwise, just go delete that one space. We can fuzz here, and then we could do a URL of HTTP 192.168.138.137 for this machine /fuzz. Now, before you hit enter, go ahead and copy this. It'll make life easier. Hit enter, let that bad boy run, come in here, paste again. And all we're going to do on this one is we're going to put 8080 at the end of it. So we're going to fuzz against 8080 and port 80. And we're going to let these run a little bit. Okay, so we'll let these run, perhaps finish, see if we can get anything of interest out here. While they're running, we can multitask. This is part of the process, by the way. As an ethical hacker or hacker in general, multitasking is important because if you're on an engagement like a pen test, you're going to be doing a lot of things at once. Because imagine a situation where you have 1,000 IP addresses and you have a week to go against them. If you only have a week to do 1,000 IP addresses, you're talking like a few minutes per IP address to look at. So you really have to identify and scan for low-hanging fruit, figure out which IP addresses are the most advantageous, go touch on those more, and perhaps be spending a couple minutes on each at the same time while you're doing this. So it's advantageous to look at multiple things, have scans running, and be bouncing back and forth from an ethical hacking perspective, and you pick up the ability to multitask over time. So anyway, we have this NFS, this network file share, and I'm curious if there's anything there. So what we can do, I'm going to go ahead and just open up a new tab, make this a little bit bigger. What we can do is we can say show mount. This is a command already built into your machine. If you're familiar with Linux, you probably know this. Put an E there. We're just going to list out the directory that's here, the mounted file share. Hopefully that there's one. Okay, and we're exporting from here this. Okay, this is the file share that's offered up. So we've got, looks like server NFS, network file share. So what we're going to do with this is we're going to go ahead and utilize this to our advantage. We're going to mount and see what we can see in this share. So in order to do that, we need to make a directory to mount to. So I'm just going to make a directory called mount, MNT. We have an MNT folder by default. And then I'm just going to call this dev since that's the name of the machine. All right, and then we're going to mount this. So we're going to say mount tac t NFS. So this is the type, it's NFS. And we're going to say 192.168.138.137. And then we're going to do server NFS. Okay, so we're calling out on this machine is this server NFS or SRV NFS. And then we're going to put it in mount dev, just like that. All right, so now we can go cd into mount dev ls, and you can see that there is a file in there. That file is called save.zip. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to unzip that. And it says, hey, we need a password to unzip this ID RSA file. I have no idea what the password is, so looks like there's an ID RSA in here and a todo.txt, and we don't have the password for either of these. Now, there's a possibility that we go online, we look through some of these folders, maybe something comes back, there's a password in there, that's the path to go. The other thing that we can do is see if we can crack this very quickly. If we can crack it, then maybe we can get in there. And there's a tool out there called fcrackzip. So we can do something called like apt install fcrack zip, just like this. And I've already got it installed, but you should not. It doesn't come by default. Okay, go ahead, let that install. Should only take a second, and then come back. And now we're going to do fcrack zip, just like that. Yours might not auto tab. You might just have to type it out. That's okay. -v for verbose. We want to have verbosity here, see all the output. -u just means we're going to be unzipping, so we're going to unzip the files here. And a -D means we're going to be using a dictionary attack, and a -p means we're going to be using a file in order to attack. So the dictionary attack we're using is the user share wordless, and then we're going to use rocku, okay? And on this other part, for the -p, we're going to go ahead and use this save.zip. So we're using a string here as the initial password file, which is what we're doing. If we didn't have this here, it would just start attacking via the files inside. So we're calling out specifically, and then here we're saying